I gotta tell you about something that happened to me recently. It's got me all freaked out, and I need to get it off my chest. So, here goes nothing. I live in this old farmhouse out in the countryside, surrounded by fields and forests. It's peaceful most of the time, but lately things have been feeling kinda off. It all started a few weeks ago when I started hearing strange noises coming from the attic. At first, I thought it was just the house settling or maybe some animals getting in. But the noises were different, like whispers, just barely audible, echoing through the rafters. I tried to ignore it, but the whispers grew louder, more insistent. They seemed to follow me everywhere, haunting me day and night. I started to feel like I was losing my mind, like the walls were closing in around me. And then came the dreams, vivid, unsettling dreams that left me feeling drained and disoriented. I'd wake up in a cold sweat, my heart pounding in my chest, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. Things only got worse from there. Objects started moving on their own, doors slamming shut when there was no one else around. I'd catch glimpses of shadows out of the corner of my eye, fleeting and indistinct, but unmistakably there. I tried to tell myself it was just my imagination, that I was letting my fears get the best of me. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. There was a presence in the house, something dark and malevolent, and it was growing stronger by the day. I knew I had to do something, but I didn't know where to start. I tried researching online, looking for answers, but everything I found just made me more confused and scared. And then, just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, I found it. An old diary hidden away in a forgotten corner of the attic. The pages were yellowed with age, the ink faded and barely legible, but as I read through them, a chill ran down my spine. The diary belonged to the original owner of the farmhouse, a woman named Sarah who had lived here over 100 years ago. She wrote about strange occurrences in the house, whispers in the night, shadows lurking in the darkness. She spoke of a presence, something ancient and malevolent, that had driven her to the brink of madness. As I read her words, I realized that whatever was haunting this house had been here for a long time, longer than I could even imagine. And now it was coming for me. I don't know what to do, to be honest. I'm scared, more scared than I've ever been in my life. But I can't just sit back and let this thing consume me. I have to find a way to stop it before it's too late. As the first rays of dawn crept through the curtains, I finally mustered the courage to peel myself out of bed. Every creak of the floorboards felt like an ominous warning, as if the slightest noise would summon that shadowy presence back into my room. I stumbled into the kitchen, the events of the night still fresh in my mind. The scratching, the figure, it all replayed in my head like a nightmare on a loop. I poured myself a cup of coffee, hoping the warmth would chase away the chill that still lingered in my bones. As I sat at the kitchen table, trying to make sense of what had happened, my mind raced with possibilities. Was it a ghost? A figment of my imagination? Or something far more sinister lurking in the darkness? I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that every shadow held a hidden threat. The once familiar comfort of my home now felt like a prison, trapping me with unseen terrors. I needed answers, closure, anything to put my mind at ease. With trembling hands, I reached for my phone and began to search the internet for any clue that could explain what had happened to me. Hours passed as I delved deeper into the realm of the supernatural, poring over forums and articles in search of similar experiences. But the more I read, the more my unease grew. Tales of malevolent spirits and demonic entities danced across the screen, each one more chilling than the last. I tried to push the fear aside, to convince myself that there had to be a rational explanation for what I had witnessed. But deep down, a nagging doubt lingered, whispering that I was not alone in my home. As night fell once again, I found myself dreading the inevitable descent into darkness. Every creak of the floorboards sent shivers down my spine. Every flicker of movement out of the corner of my eye filled me with dread. I barricaded myself in my room, the faint glow of my phone, the only source of comfort in the oppressive darkness. But even that small beacon of light offered little solace against the encroaching shadows. Time seemed to lose all meaning as I sat there, trapped in my own personal purgatory. The minutes stretched into hours, each one dragging me further into the depths of despair. And then, just when I thought I couldn't bear it any longer, I heard it, the scratching. Faint at first, like a whisper on the wind, but steadily growing louder with each passing moment. I held my breath, my heart pounding in my chest as I awaited the inevitable. The figure emerged from the darkness, its form twisted and contorted in ways that defied description. I wanted to scream, to flee, but my body refused to obey. I was paralyzed, trapped in a waking nightmare with no means of escape. The figure drew closer, its eyes burning with a malevolent intensity that sent terror coursing through my veins. I could feel its presence looming over me, a suffocating weight pressing down on my chest. And then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the figure vanished, leaving me alone in the darkness once more. I lay there for what felt like an eternity, too afraid to move, too afraid to even blink. But as the first light of dawn crept through the curtains, I knew that my ordeal was far from over. For something had awakened within me, a primal instinct that screamed of danger lurking just beyond the edge of perception. And as I stared into the abyss, I knew that whatever had visited me that night was only the beginning of a far greater horror yet to come. But for now, all I could do was wait, trapped in a nightmare from which there was no waking. I've been wanting to share something that's been weighing on my mind lately. It's about this old house I used to live in, and some seriously spooky stuff that went down there. Buckle up, 'cause this one's a wild ride. So, a couple of years back, I moved into this charming little cottage out in the countryside. It was picturesque, with ivy climbing up the walls and a big old oak tree in the yard. Perfect, right? Well, not exactly. From the moment I stepped foot inside, I could sense there was something off about the place. It was like the air was heavy with, I dunno, sadness. Yeah, sadness is the word, but I brushed it off as me being paranoid, no. Anyway, things started getting weird pretty quick. At first, it was just little things, like objects moving on their own or strange shadows darting across the walls. Easy to ignore, right? But then the noises started. Late at night, when I was all alone, I hear these whispers echoing through the halls. It was like someone, or something, was trying to communicate with me. Freaky, right? But it gets worse. I started having these dreams, or maybe they were more like nightmares. I'd see flashes of people I didn't recognize, trapped in the walls of the house. Their faces were twisted in agony, like they were screaming for help. And then I'd wake up, drenched in sweat, my heart pounding like a jackhammer. I tried telling myself it was just my imagination running wild, but deep down, I knew something wasn't right. There was a darkness in that house, a darkness that seemed to seep into every crack and crevice. I started doing some digging, trying to uncover the history of the place. Turns out, the cottage had a pretty grim past, something about a family who lived there years ago and disappeared under mysterious circumstances. Spooky, huh? Armed with this newfound knowledge, I decided to confront whatever was haunting the house. I gathered up some candles, a Ouija board, all the essentials, and prepared to face my fears head-on. That night, as the clock struck midnight, I lit the candles and set up the Ouija board in the living room. I called out to the spirits, daring them to show themselves. And boy, did they deliver. The air grew icy cold, and the candles flickered as if caught in a breeze. And then, out of the darkness, they came, the shadows of the past, reaching out to me from the other side. I could feel their pain, their anguish, as if it were my own. But instead of being afraid, I felt, liberated, like I'd finally confronted the demons that had been tormenting me for so long. And as quickly as they had appeared, the shadows faded away, leaving me alone in the darkness. From that day on, the whispers stopped, the shadows disappeared, and the nightmares, well, they became a thing of the past. I don't know what happened that night, or if I'll ever fully understand it. But one thing's for sure, I'll never forget the haunting memories of that old cottage.